Professor, I'm looking at a letter dated March 16, 2020. It's a letter to Governor Lamont in Connecticut. The title of it is Urgent Action Needed to Protect Individuals in Connecticut's Prisons and Jails from Coronavirus 19 Pandemic. Did you sign that letter?
So I don't recall sitting here today, Senator.
Here's your signature. Here it is back here. Why didn't you turn this over to us when you were asked to submit documents?
So, Senator, I made every effort to search for everything that I had ever signed. That's not a letter I remember, but I will certainly take a look at that. And
we found it was with a search on the internet.
So I apologize, Senator. I apologize.
In your letter to the governor, here's what you say. As they stand, prisons and jails are detrimental to public health and human rights and disproportionately harm marginalized communities, including Black, Brown, Indigenous, and other communities of color, immigrants, people with mental illness, people with disabilities, people in the LGBTQ plus community, people who use drugs, people engaged in sex work and street economies, and people experiencing houselessness and poverty. So if you believe that about our prisons, how are you going to ever send somebody to prison?
So, Senator, I will need to take a look at that letter, and I apologize that that's not something I found to hand to this committee.
You're not denying you said that.
What's up, Patriots? Welcome back to Liberty Trigger, where common sense is still alive and kicking. Today, we're reacting to Senator John Kennedy absolutely barbecuing a judicial nominee in a hearing that felt like a mix of law and order and a slow Southern roast. Stick around because this is important, and hey, while you are here, if you believe in holding our leaders accountable and you appreciate this kind of breakdown, so me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss a thing. Let's dive right in.
I do need to see the letter to see the context because, again, it's not something I remember adding my name to. I can assure you, right. Senator.
And you also say, first, you call on Governor Lamont to release everybody in jail. Is that right? Because of the coronavirus?
So again, Senator, I would need to see that letter in front of me. It certainly was not.
You can find it just put your name into Google. You'll find it in about 3 nanoseconds.
I will, Senator. I can assure you that
You said in your letter, Professor, we call on Governor Lamont, state of Connecticut, and all Connecticut jurisdictions to immediate release to the maximum extent possible people incarcerated pre-trial and post-conviction. And then you go on to say, talking once again about our jails, the global COVID-19 pandemic is throwing into sharp relief the untenable state of our penal system and the need for sustained action to shrink its scale, shrink its size, and shrink its scope. You sound here like the district attorney in San Francisco. If you believe that, how are you going to ever send us anybody to jail, Professor?
I can assure you, Senator, that I understand the role of the judge and that I can assure you prison time is an appropriate sentence in many cases.
That's not what you say here to the governor. You wrote the governor. This isn't some DoorDash delivery guy. You wrote the governor of your state 3 years ago.
So again, Senator,
you were in law school.
So again, Senator, I would need to look at the letter. It sounds like it was written at the height of the pandemic where governors were looking for.
You also wrote the governor, you said, people over the age of 55 are at the greatest risk for COVID-19, but also pose the least public safety risk to our communities. People in this age group can and should be released immediately to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. You think the governor just, if you're over the age of 55, he should have let everybody go?
No, Senator, that's not a position.
That's what you said.
Okay.
Here it is, biggest house.
Again, Senator, I will look at that letter. I can assure you that.
Find it on Google, Professor. You also say Governor Lamont should issue an executive order to direct the state's attorney offices and law enforcement entities, including the town and city police departments, and any federal law enforcement entity operating within the state to immediately cease adding to the incarcerated prison population given the high risk of infection posed by the population increase. You asked the governors to tell every law enforcement official in the state to stop arresting people and putting them in jail, didn't you?
So again, Senator, I have to look at that letter. I do think there were modifications that the governors were making around the country to respond to the pandemic.
You also had an opinion in your letter about, can I have another 30 seconds, Mr. You had an opinion in your letter about immigration. You said immigration detention poses the same health risk to jails and prisons, and Connecticut law enforcement must stop feeding people into the unsafe and inhumane immigration detention system. Then you say Governor Lamont should release all individuals currently in state custody who are waiting transfer to ICE custody, and the governor should declare a moratorium on all such future transfers. How, if somebody is in our country illegally and commits a crime, are you going to put them in jail if you believe this about immigration?
Senator, I can assure you, were I so fortunate to be confirmed, I would treat crimes seriously.
That's not what this letter says, Professor, and it was 3 years ago. It wasn't when you were in law school, and you didn't turn it over to us. We had to find it on our own.
Senator, the chair has been generous in time. I think you've had...
First, Kennedy warms up by grilling Mr. Fonzone, asking if Sidley Austin, the giant law firm, makes clients list their political beliefs on intake forms. Fonzone gives the classic lawyer answer. Well, Senator, it's complicated. Translation, if you can pay the bill, welcome aboard. That was just the appetizer. Then Kennedy turns to the professor, the judicial nominee, and drops a 2020 letter on the table like the plot twist in a courtroom drama. The letter? Addressed to Connecticut's governor. The topic? Release prisoners during COVID. Kennedy asks, did you sign this? The professor basically says, who, me? I don't recall. But Kennedy literally points to the signature like, right here, buddy. It's amazing how some people forget things, except when there's political pressure involved. So what's in the letter? Oh, just a casual little suggestion that Connecticut should release people from prison both pre-trial and post-conviction to stop COVID. Yeah, everybody. Not nonviolent. Not low risk. Just open the gates and hope for the best. Kennedy basically says, if you think prisons are this bad, how are you ever going to send criminals to prison as a judge? Valid question. The letter also claims that people over 55 are the least dangerous and should be released immediately. I don't know what world these folks live in, but age doesn't erase criminal history like a Harry Potter spell. Kennedy wasn't buying it either. Then Kennedy reads the craziest part. The letter calls for law enforcement to stop adding people to the prison population, which is polite political speak for stop arresting criminals. Imagine calling 911 and hearing, sorry, ma'am, we're not collecting new inmates today. Try back after the pandemic. You can't make this stuff up. The letter also says immigration detention is inhumane and that the governor should stop sending people to IC and release anyone waiting for transfer. Kennedy asked the golden question. So if someone is here illegally and commits a crime, how are you going to put them in jail? The professor gives the trademark answer. I take crime seriously. Except the letter says the opposite. Look, patriots, COVID was a mess for everyone, but letting criminals roam free, halting arrests, and shutting down immigration enforcement isn't public health. It's public insanity. And I don't remember signing a defense. Come on. If I signed something that could empty half the prisons in the state, I'd remember it every time I pass a cop. Senator Kennedy? He delivered the grilling America needed. Polite, sharp, and absolutely relentless. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more common sense commentary. God bless you. God bless America, and God bless Senator Kennedy's patience.